Hi everyone, welcome back to Letters to an Asexual. I'm Swank Ivy and this is Letters to an Asexual number 99. So since 99 comes right before 100, as you all know, I'm looking at a pretty cool milestone coming up here, and stay tuned to the end of this video for a special announcement about what I'm going to do for number 100 and how you can participate. But for now, I'm going to go into my letter number 99. As an aside, I feel like I've shared this one before, but maybe it was just on Tumblr because I can't find a reference to it in any of my videos. I keep transcripts and try to keep pretty good tabs on what I've already shared with this channel, and I can't find a record of me reading this one, so hopefully I'm not just overlooking it. But this one is an old comment that was left on my Letters to an Asexual number 10, so you can see how these kind of build up. And the types of fail contained in this letter include did not do the research, accusing me of being too serious or being hysterical, which is not a word I tend to use, or something, when I corrected them. And also please note that it centers around discussion of masturbation, which there's absolutely nothing graphic here, but it's mentioned in the conversation. So this person left me this comment. I have watched a few of your videos, and I think something that would help your case of being an asexual is to also describe the difference between an asexual and a null sexual. Asexual being one who doesn't like the idea of being with another but by oneself, and a null being one who doesn't like the idea at all, even with oneself. But I know how it is. I'm a recovering asexual. So nice to meet another one like me. So in case you need a translation there, it appears they're trying to say that asexual equals someone who takes care of sexual urges by masturbating, while their made-up term of null asexual would be a person who has sexual urges but doesn't relieve them. That's how I read it anyway. In other words, they're trying to distinguish orientation by behavior, which is always a terrible idea. So, yeah, and recovering asexual, like, you never can expect anything good to come out of someone who uses that phrase. No, dude, I am not like you. So it's not uncommon for people who have not done any research and have not spent any time in the community or talking to anyone who identifies this way to try to police our language, to try to tell us how we should be talking about our experiences and try to innovate new terms for us or tell us how we're already having our conversations is not okay with them. So, I've seen this in either people trying to say that asexual people shouldn't use the word asexual because that only applies to asexual reproduction. And I've also seen a lot of people saying you shouldn't use the word asexual because a word for that already exists, and that's celibacy. And you people who have been watching my videos obviously have heard me talk about how celibacy is a practice and is not the same thing as a sexual orientation, and why there's such an obvious distinction. But these people are always persisting in trying to tell us that they have a better idea of how we should talk about ourselves, while they have complete misconceptions about what it even is that we're discussing, because why would they listen to us, right? So anyway, you'll also notice that the person said that their idea would help make my case as an asexual. Somehow I think no. It's not like people who are against asexuality or don't like the activism or think it's an illness or something are going to be turned around because we use a term that he invented, null asexual. Anyway, so me again. I've never heard null asexual used in the community, and no, asexuality isn't specifically referring to people who don't like the idea of being with another but by oneself. Asexuals are people who don't experience sexual attraction. Beyond that, their habits with regards to self-sexuality or sexual behavior with others is variable. Some asexuals distinguish between being libidoist or not, but your vocabulary, including recovering asexual, isn't familiar to me. So next you get to see how he goes on from here to get condescending and dismissive, because of course he does. And it's very important to this person that I understand that I'm wrong for suggesting words mean things. Him again. I am confused by how centered you are about this. I have to know a precise word to have a valid opinion in your eyes? Well, you are giving the idea of asexual people too much of a one-sided opinion. An asexual is one that reproduces with no mate. Since humans cannot do this, being asexual refers to a human that chooses to masturbate over normal mating/dating. Now simply add the idea of null to that, and we have an asexual that doesn't pleasure their desires at all. I think they don't understand that I'm not making this up by myself. And I think they don't understand that not all asexuals masturbate or have sex drives. They're just assuming that this is how it is and that they get to name it, not us. And hey, let's just put another tick mark on the chalkboard for brings up asexual reproduction while we're talking about human asexuality. Me again. I didn't say you have to know a precise word to have a valid opinion. I'm saying asexuality, as defined by the thousands who identify that way, has nothing to do with reproduction. It's not an opinion. It is a definition. I did not make it up. Regarding the difference between asexuals who masturbate and asexuals who don't, within the community I've heard some identify as libidoist or self-sexual, but those are not sexual orientations. They're descriptive of behavior. And now he continues, throwing in the, oh, you young people and your wish to be special defense. And also they throw personal questions at me while pretending they already asked these questions, and I'm just avoiding coughing up the answer. I have become very interested in arguing with you. However, you seem like you're putting way too much thought into it. Like, I came here talking about how asexual is people who pleasure themselves. And this libidoist word that you say people use in the community, well, that's just another slang word that must have become popular among the young. However, the question was pointed more at you. What kind of asexual are you? Self-pleasure or null? 'Cause to me, seem like me. I don't know what the hell they mean by 'cause to me, you seem like me. I think they were, again, suggesting I'm like them, whatever the hell that is. Anyway, don't you love when people argue with you and then tell you that your response contained too much thought? I mean, if you want to have a conversation where your partner is not providing thoughtful responses, feel free to talk to a wall. If you're going to come into my YouTube comments and complain that I gave you a thoughtful answer, I'm not really sure why you're here. Me now. If you want to have a discussion about something, one of the worst ways to go about it is to suggest the other person is overanalyzing. That poor technique is even listed on Derailing for Dummies. Look that up, because it's used so often. As for your misconceptions and misused vocabulary, dismissing it as used by the young because you won't do research on the group you're trying to describe is a poor technique too. Also, I'm 33 years old, not a child trying to use hip slang. See how old this stuff is? I'm 45 now. I just had a birthday. Hi! If you look at your original comment, you did not ask me a question at all. You told me I am using the wrong terminology and not being precise enough, even though I'm the one using widespread, well-known vocabulary and you appear to be making things up to address distinctions you think are important. As for strangers asking me personal questions, I have discussed it to the extent I wish to in my couple dozen videos. Please check them out if you want to know all my details. So he comes back one more time. I didn't have enough space to cover my idea of recovering asexual, but it is when an asexual like me who pleasures themselves to release the proper amounts of fluid out of the body. Fun fact, if a male masturbates more than once a day, his chances of prostate cancer go down by 45%. However, the base desire for the illusion of sexual acceptance started to kick in, and I became tired of my choice of being non-sexual. But I was out of the idea for too long, and now I gotta learn how to human again. Yeah, learn to human. Go for it, buddy. I wonder if they actually pulled that 45% out of their ass completely, or if they think they read it somewhere. I'd actually already encountered studies about this phenomenon where people seem to think masturbation will work as a preventative measure for stuff they imagine happens to them if they don't do it. And from what I read, besides being really inconclusive, and besides having widely different results depending on the age group of the males studied, the cause-effect relationship is totally switched around here. Men who masturbate more also tend to have a higher sex drive, and in association with that tend to have higher hormone levels. And higher hormone levels in younger men actually suggests more likelihood of getting the hormone-based cancers. So throw in there the confusion over what constitutes frequent masturbation for a guy in what age group, and you have a lot of studies that don't actually suggest at all that masturbation keeps cancer away. Gotta love when people make up some reason they have to do it, though. I responded again. You're definitely not talking about asexuality if you suggest that A, you are recovering from it, like a sickness, because you are masturbating, or B, non-sexual people are non-human. As for your fact, actually masturbation does not change risks of prostate cancer if you actually look at how inconclusive these studies are. Rates of masturbation are a result of how much of a hormone you have, and correlation with cancer varies greatly depending on the age of the sample group. Also, please note that asexuality, what I'm talking about in this video and others, is not a choice of being non-sexual. It is a sexual orientation, meaning people who aren't sexually attracted to other people. I don't consider sexual interest or acceptance to be base either, and I really urge you to look at some actual asexuality-related research if you want to discuss this. We aren't speaking the same language here. So he just dropped the discussion and then didn't come back, but I'm fairly certain they walked away shaking their head at how hysterical I got, from replying to their ridiculous comments in a complete and clear way. And they decided they no longer have to talk to me because I got angry or something. They may have projected anger onto me, which incidentally is another technique that happens a lot on that website that I sometimes have mentioned called Derailing for Dummies. Oh, you're too angry, so I don't have to listen to you anymore. That's literally in the manual. And I sometimes wonder, how did so many douchey people get the same playbook, right? Like, do they hand them out at douche school? So, anyway, that was the end of that, and to wrap this up, I will say you can go ahead and comment if you want to comment on the content of this letter, but also in the comments, if you would like to participate in my Letters to an Asexual number 100, I'm going to do a video that is for once not a crappy letter. It will be contributions from folks in the ace community who watch my videos or follow me on other social media. I'm going to be inviting people to contribute a story about one of two things. One of them is something that I'm referring to as shorthand as ace joy, something that made you happy regarding asexuality, either maybe something if you have a story about when you came out and you were accepted, or discovering asexual media and seeing yourself reflected, conversations that you may have had, realizing that you were asexual and feeling amazing about it, or some kind of discovery related to it, and maybe some of you have stories about helping other people figure out that they were ace. I'm not going to entirely limit the contributions to only ace spectrum people. I mean, if you're an asexual ally that watches my videos and you have a story about this, especially if you helped someone who was ace figure out they were ace, or you have a story like that, you can share it, just with the caveat that if you put it in my comments here or you privately message me through one of the other avenues, which you should be able to find on my channel, that if you're going to send me your input, you're granting me permission to use it in the video. The other option for if you don't have a story like this or you would prefer to do something else, I'm calling this one in shorthand very ace moments. A lot of us have stories about, oh my god, that was very ace of me, or just situations where you realize in a group or in a crowd that you're the only person who's having this reaction because you're ace. And a lot of ace people have just really funny or heartwarming or just hilarious stories about how they were very, very ace in a situation. I'll tell one of mine, which was a recent game playing experience where I was playing online games with my friends. We were playing a Jackbox game called Split the Room, and the idea is that the computer comes up with a scenario that they describe a scenario to you, and all of the players are supposed to make a choice between the computer-generated option or an option that the player suggests. And I had to suggest an option for this computer-generated scenario where they said, okay, imagine that you are a body double in a movie, and one day you come on set and you find out that your job is going to be to substitute for the main actor in blank. And the computer-generated choice was to be hit by a car as a stunt on the movie set. And then I have to provide the other option to make everybody else choose between these two options. And the idea of the game, which is how you win, is to do something controversial, that you're hoping that some people will pick the computer's answer and some people will pick your answer. You have to make something that's controversial so you'll split the room. So if you can get, some of the people to vote for you and some of the people to vote for the computer, then you're going to do well. So the computer gives me, I have to say something that would be maybe equally bad, for stunt doubles having to do a stunt getting hit by a car on set. And I put in doing a fairly tasteful but explicit sex scene. And everybody picked my answer. So it wasn't controversial at all, and I lost really big in that round. And I'm like, wow, who knew everybody would prefer to have sex versus get hit by a car? Who knew? That's a very ace moment. Just, it never occurred to me that some people might rather do a physical stunt than be, naked on film in something that a bunch of people would watch. I was figuring some people might be embarrassed by, having to do an intimate scene, but everybody answered, oh yeah, I'd do the sex scene. And I thought it was really funny in retrospect that I didn't realize how much better that would be than the risk of bodily harm to get hit by a car, even if it was a stunt. So that's my story. And I would say my story of ace joy was the first time that I told someone that I was asexual, and he replied, oh, you're not the first friend I've had that identified as asexual, so, I know what that means. You don't have to explain it. And it was years and years ago, but that was the first time I had ever told someone my sexual orientation, and they didn't need me to educate them about it, and it made me really happy. So, Hopefully we'll all have more of those moments. Anyway, so you don't have to do an either or also. You can contribute a story on both of those things if you'd like. The easiest way is probably putting them in the comments here. But if you'd rather keep your story private until it's revealed in the video, then you could feel free to use, on my channel there should be contact information where you can message me through an email, or if you go to my website, which most people know, it's swankivy.com, there are some contact options. So any of those ways I should be able to get your input. And if you have any special instructions on how to use your story, please let me know. I can make them anonymous. I do plan to show screen caps of the people so that I can credit people, but if you would prefer to not have your name attached to it, if you're delivering it in a different way besides a YouTube comment, then just let me know how you would want that to be credited if you don't want your name to be associated with it. Ooh, I'm suppressing a yawn there. A little tired. So, but yeah, this is my 99th video wrapping up, and I'm really excited to hear people's stories and be able to share a fun milestone at number 100. So, thanks for watching all this time, and I'll see you next time.